Music legend Elton John is sharing a health update. He has been blind in his right eye since July.
After wrapping up his farewell tour last year, Elton John reveals he can no longer see.
Elton John has finally revealed what really happened with Princess Diana, and it's far worse than anyone imagined. Their friendship, once seen as unbreakable, carried hidden struggles that no one could have guessed. As the public admired their bond, there were things behind closed doors that told a much darker story. Were there hidden struggles and emotional battles that Diana carried without anyone knowing? Let us uncover the truth that will cause the entire royal family to resign their titles at once. How a party changed everything. Their story begins in the early 80s when Diana was still adjusting to her new life as a royal. She met Elton at Prince Andrew's 21st birthday party in 1981, an event filled with royal formalities and stiff traditions. The atmosphere was heavy, but amidst it all, a young and fresh-faced Diana managed to break free from the rigidity of the evening. She took to the dance floor and invited Elton to join her, sparking a moment of genuine connection. The two twirled and laughed, creating a scene that felt almost magical. It was a spark, one that would ignite a friendship built on mutual understanding and shared vulnerability. Before we delve into this, it's clear that their bond wasn't just about friendship. It carried deeper truths and hidden struggles that no one could have anticipated, and this won't be the only revelation that will shock you. She wasn't the global icon she would later become. At that moment, she was simply a young woman stepping into an overwhelming world of expectations. A famous musician brought a playful energy to their interactions, offering her a sense of relief from the formalities of royal life. This initial connection quickly grew into a close bond. Both of them, in their own ways, were navigating the weight of fame and the challenges it brought. She, entering the pressure cooker of royal life, and her friend, dealing with personal battles, found solace in one another. As their friendship deepened, it became clear that this was no ordinary connection. She confided during some of the darkest times in her life. Behind the fairy tale image, her marriage to Prince Charles was falling apart, and she was battling bulimia, a reflection of the immense pressure to maintain perfection. Her struggles were not just physical. She felt isolated and unheard within the palace walls. For her, this friendship became a lifeline. Their late-night conversations were raw and heartfelt, allowing her to voice her fears and frustrations without judgment. The humor her friend brought into her life provided not just a listening ear, but also a source of joy. This friendship offered her something she desperately needed, a space to be herself. In the presence of someone who truly understood, she could shed the princess persona and simply be herself. They shared laughter and poked fun at the absurdities of fame and royal protocol. For someone so often portrayed as the epitome of grace and poise, she had a sharp sense of humor that matched her friend's wit. Their shared laughter became a source of strength, helping her endure the relentless scrutiny and expectations placed upon her. To her friend, she wasn't just another celebrity. She was a kindred spirit who understood the pain of living in the spotlight. But their friendship wasn't without its challenges. Being in the public eye meant their bond was subjected to intense scrutiny. One of the major rifts in their relationship can be traced back to King Charles. By the mid-80s, she had become more than just the Princess of Wales. She was the people's princess, adored for her warmth, relatability, and humanitarian efforts. This growing popularity, however, reportedly created tension between her and Charles. While her openness endeared her to the public, it clashed with the traditional and reserved image that Charles represented. Her fame often overshadowed his, even during events meant to highlight his contributions. This imbalance not only strained their marriage, but also influenced her friendships, including her bond with her friend. Charles reportedly disapproved of her friendships with certain figures. A flamboyant individual, known for bold statements and a larger-than-life persona, was seen as a potential public relations challenge for the royal family. His outspoken support for causes like AIDS awareness, a subject still heavily stigmatized in the 80s and 90s, didn't sit well with the monarchy's preference for discretion. Despite this, the friendship remained strong publicly and privately. She admired the courage and willingness to break away from the constraints of royal tradition. For her, unwavering support and humor were a source of comfort during some of the most turbulent times in her life. Her friendship with the famous musician brought happiness, but the stress of royal life started to affect even her closest bonds. Pressures that tested their bond. Their friendship faced another challenge in the form of public and royal pressures. The media's obsession with her often spilled over into her personal relationships. Her close friend, too, was no stranger to the relentless gaze of the press. The constant scrutiny took a toll on their bond, but despite the ups and downs, their connection remained strong. Her tragic death in 1997 marked a heartbreaking end to their friendship, but the love and respect endured. A heartfelt performance at her funeral became an iconic tribute, capturing the world's grief and a deep sense of loss. Years later, reflections on their friendship shed new light on the pressures she faced. Candid words about her struggles painted a picture of a woman who was far more complex and human than the fairy tale image the world adored. These revelations challenged the public's understanding of her life, highlighting the emotional toll of her role as a royal and a global icon. The words served as a reminder of the cost of fame and the importance of authentic connections in a world that often prioritizes appearances over substance. Charles had more on his mind than one person's outspoken ways. He seemed concerned about her increasingly visible friendships, particularly with individuals strongly involved in raising awareness about AIDS. The royal family, always cautious about its public image, may have feared these connections could spark controversy. Why would a bond built on mutual respect and humor create such a stir? She, known for her fierce loyalty to those she cared for, saw her friend as a kindred spirit. Their friendship grew deeper over time, based on shared vulnerability and laughter. But Buckingham Palace was not pleased. As her popularity soared, Charles grew uneasy about her high-profile connections. Tensions reached a boiling point when her friends started a project to support an AIDS foundation. It was a coffee table book featuring portraits of celebrities and royalty, and she had initially agreed to write the introduction. Her involvement would have brought significant attention to the cause. Her compassion and star power made her the perfect advocate, but suddenly she backed out, leaving her friend shocked and heartbroken. It wasn't long before Charles's influence became clear. Reports suggested he voiced concerns about the potential backlash such a project might bring to the royal family. For her friend, this wasn't just about losing her support. It felt deeply personal. Her decision left the bond between them fractured. The once unshakable friendship they shared began to fray. Their frequent phone calls stopped, and the warm connection between them faded into a chilling silence. It wasn't just a rift, it was a glaring absence in both their lives. For her, the decision to step away wasn't simple. By this point, the relentless demands of royal life weighed heavily on her. Torn between her loyalty to her friend and her duty to the crown, she found herself trapped. Her withdrawal wasn't about abandoning her friend, but about surviving the tightening control of the palace. Meanwhile, her friend was left in the dark, grappling with unanswered questions and a profound sense of loss. Their friendship became another casualty of the unyielding royal expectations. Despite the estrangement, her friend never stopped caring for her. Feelings poured into music and continued advocacy work, championing the causes they had once dreamed of supporting together. Then, in 1997, just weeks before her tragic death, fate brought them together again at a mutual friend's funeral. Sitting side by side, they shared their grief, and for a moment, it seemed like old times. But life is rarely so forgiving. Their brief reunion was soon overshadowed by an even greater loss. Diana's untimely death on August 31, 1997, shocked the world. Known as the People's Princess, her passing triggered a wave of mourning that reached every corner of the globe. For her close friend, the loss was deeply personal. They had just begun to mend their friendship, and now she was gone. The pain of losing someone who had been such an integral part of life was overwhelming. Diana had been a confidant, a source of comfort, and a light in the darkest moments. Faced with this devastating loss, Elton was asked to perform at Diana's funeral. It was a moment of profound responsibility. He chose to sing "Candle in the Wind," a song originally written for Marilyn Monroe, but reworked to honor Diana. The performance became a global anthem of grief, capturing the sorrow felt by millions. Elton's heartfelt tribute was a raw, emotional moment, solidifying Diana's legacy and his commitment to preserving her memory. Their friendship stayed strong through many struggles, but as her problems grew, outside pressures began to pull them apart. A friendship that survived the storm. Even after her death, Elton remained loyal to Diana's ideals. From supporting her sons to defending her values, he ensured that the world never forgot the woman behind the crown. Their friendship, though strained and tested, endured in ways words could hardly express. Diana's life and death highlighted the immense pressures of royal expectations and the sacrifices demanded by the institution. Yet, through it all, the bond between her and this friend proved unbreakable in spirit. Charles's role in the unraveling of Diana's friendships cannot be ignored. His influence, whether intentional or not, added to the tension that ultimately strained her connections. Yet, despite the pain and distance, this unwavering dedication to Diana's memory shows the resilience of their bond. In a world dominated by public scrutiny and royal protocols, some relationships transcend the barriers imposed on them. One poignant tribute to Diana remains etched in history. Candle in the Wind not only honored her life, but also gave voice to a collective grief that united millions. For her friend, it was a way to cope with the loss of someone dear and to ensure her spirit lived on. The song's lyrics, reimagined to reflect Diana's legacy, became a symbol of love and remembrance. Even as his relationship with the royal family became more complicated, his commitment to Diana's values never wavered. Looking back, the rift between Diana and her friend wasn't just about misunderstandings or external pressures. It was a reflection of the challenges faced by two individuals navigating vastly different worlds. Diana's compassion and his courage created a friendship that defied conventions, even when tested by circumstances beyond their control. Through heartbreak and reconciliation, their bond endured as a testament to the power of true connection. The performance at Diana's funeral was unforgettable. Millions watched as the singer's voice carried the weight of grief and love, resonating with everyone who admired her life and work. This heartfelt moment became a defining image of the ceremony, but it also revealed deeper cracks between him and the royal family. Years later, when he decided to speak publicly about their relationship, it left many shocked. For decades, he had remained silent about the intricacies of their bond, especially the reasons for their brief estrangement. So why break the silence now? The decision seemed rooted in a desire to preserve her legacy. To him, she wasn't just a princess, but a dear friend who offered unwavering support during some of his darkest days. Their connection wasn't about fame or royal appearances. It was about two people who understood each other's pain. Her struggles with isolation within the royal family mirrored his own battles with the pressures of public life. Together, they found solace in their shared experiences, forming a bond that was as profound as it was rare. However, the weight of royal expectations often overshadowed her personal life. Trapped in an unhappy marriage and facing constant scrutiny, her emotional health suffered. Her friend's empathy for her situation only deepened as he saw firsthand how much she was struggling. He often described how she felt imprisoned by the rigid traditions of Buckingham Palace, a place that left little room for personal expression or genuine connections. Their friendship became a lifeline, but even this couldn't withstand the external pressures forever. The royal family's role in her life, and by extension, her friendships, was significant. Prince Charles, in particular, was a figure of contention. It seemed his focus on preserving the monarchy's image often came at the expense of her well-being. Her rising popularity, especially through her charitable work, appeared to threaten the royal establishment. This tension inevitably bled into her personal relationships, making it increasingly difficult for her to maintain genuine connections. Her friends saw this as one of the many challenges she faced, challenges that often went unnoticed by the public. For her, the fairy tale image presented to the world was far from her reality. She entered the royal family as a young woman, barely out of her teens, and was immediately thrust into a life of expectations and public scrutiny. This relentless pressure chipped away at her sense of self, making it hard for her to sustain meaningful relationships. He understood this better than most, and it fueled his desire to speak out. The public narrative surrounding her life often felt shallow, reducing her story to headlines about her marriage and tragic death. But she was so much more than that. Her sudden death left a hole that could never be filled, but it also pushed her friend to keep her memory alive with great care, alive with a legacy that changed the world. He wanted the world to see the real person she was, a compassionate woman who deeply cared about making a difference. Her work in breaking the stigma around AIDS was a testament to her courage and kindness. As an advocate for AIDS awareness, he admired her willingness to challenge societal taboos. Her empathy and resilience inspired millions, and he was determined to ensure that this side of her wasn't forgotten. Her legacy wasn't just about the scandals or the media's portrayal. It was about the lives she touched and the causes she championed. Years after her passing, his decision to share his perspective wasn't just a personal choice, it was a responsibility he felt towards her memory. He understood that time and sensationalism risked distorting the truth about who she really was. By speaking out, he hoped to preserve her legacy as a beacon of compassion and strength. His candidness, however, didn't sit well with everyone, particularly within the royal family. His remarks about Prince Charles and the broader royal institution highlighted the ongoing tension between him and the monarchy. Elton's vocal support for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle only added to this strain. His criticism of the royal family's treatment of the couple echoed the struggles she faced decades earlier. To Elton, defending Harry and Meghan wasn't just about them, it was about standing up for the values she embodied. Kindness, empathy, and authenticity were principles she lived by, and Elton felt it was his duty to uphold them, even if it meant further alienating himself from the royals. Despite the fallout, Elton's choice to speak out was ultimately about honoring her. He wanted the world to remember her not as a tragic figure, but as a symbol of hope and compassion. Her ability to connect with people from all walks of life was unparalleled, and Elton knew that her legacy deserved to be celebrated in its entirety. By sharing his memories and insights, he hoped to offer a fuller picture of her life, one that went beyond the media's often shallow portrayal. Elton's thoughts about her revealed how much her life affected her emotionally. She faced overwhelming pressure to meet royal expectations, which often made her feel alone and misunderstood. But even with these struggles, she showed incredible strength and an unending kindness that touched so many lives. To Elton, this was the heart of who she was, a woman who wouldn't let her circumstances define her or stop her from being true to herself. He felt the world needed to see this side of her, to understand her deeply and recognize the lasting impact she had on others. Through Elton's words, her story becomes a powerful reminder of how complex her life truly was. She faced so many challenges but carried herself with a grace that continues to inspire millions. Elton's choice to speak about her, even though some found it controversial, came from a place of deep love and respect. He didn't want the truth of her story to be forgotten or overshadowed by anything less meaningful. By doing so, he not only honored her memory, but also highlighted the values she lived by, values that are still important today. Her life was full of contrasts. She was both a public figure and a deeply private person, balancing the expectations of a demanding world with her own need for authenticity. Her compassion wasn't just seen in grand gestures, but also in the small, quiet ways she connected with people from all walks of life. Elton admired this about her and felt it was his responsibility to ensure this part of her wasn't lost in time. He believed her story had to be told in full, showing the world not just her struggles, but also her victories. By sharing these reflections, Elton hoped to keep her memory alive in a way that was honest and meaningful. Her story, he felt, wasn't just about her role as a royal or her personal challenges. It was about the values she stood for. These values, rooted in kindness, empathy, and resilience, are as important today as they were during her lifetime. Elton's words remind us all of the impact one person can have when they choose to lead with their heart, no matter how difficult the circumstances. Is Elton John's revelation about Princess Diana just a personal account? Or does it expose deeper truths about the pressures she faced within the royal family? Could this be the side of Diana's story the world was never meant to hear? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more.